Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Josh, and I'm back here on Helivax Media with another video. It's a new year, and with that comes a lot of awesome games to look forward to. 2022 looks to be packed with amazing titles from action games to RPGs and everything beyond. There seems to be something for every gamer to look forward to. I know I have some titles that have been on my most anticipated list since they've gotten revealed. So with this video, I wanted to go over my top 5 anticipated games of 2022. So sit back and relax and join me as we discuss these games I'm looking forward to playing this year. Now, I'm pretty stoked for these games, but I decided to discuss them based on their release dates. First up, we have Dying Light 2, Stay Human, for PlayStation and Xbox, releasing on February 4th. Man, out of the gate, we're going to have a huge game. The original Dying Light by Techland was kind of a sleeper hit back in 2015, at the beginning of the PS4 Xbox One lifespan, but wow, was it a breath of fresh air. The fluid motion of the parkour system mixed in with the fun combat and awesome weapons made for such a cool experience. Not really seen since something like Mirror's Edge, which in my opinion didn't really pull off that feeling of free running over buildings and obstacles, as well as Dying Light did. However, the story left much to be desired, but it was pretty decent. With the sequel, we have a complete overhaul of the story, characters, and gameplay that the original started. The game takes place 20 years after the first Dying Light, and you play as Aiden Caldwell. The cool thing about Dying Light 2 is that this time your choice matters. It seems like anything and everything you do has a consequence, which can make for some interesting gameplay. For instance, I saw one clip that had you restore power to a hydro facility. Once you completed, you had to decide which faction would gain control of it, each one giving you different perks and possibly making new enemies. One big change seems to be that you can get infected and possibly become a zombie. I don't believe they've shown this much, but they did tease that you have to monitor a wristband, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Recently, Techland has stated that the game would take around 500 hours to complete fully, but they walked it back and said that's to do absolutely everything in the game. Apparently, to complete the main campaign is only 20 hours, and with all the side quests, it hits around 80, which seems to be a little bit more reasonable. I personally love when my games can last many hours, so I'm excited to dive in. Up next, we have Horizon Forbidden West, the sequel to Guerrilla's 2017 hit PS4 game, Horizon Zero Dawn, which in itself was a huge departure from what Guerrilla was known for. Coming from the Killzone franchise to Horizon was a risky play, but ultimately a big payoff for PlayStation. Selling 10 million copies, it's one of PlayStation's first big party titles, and in more recent times, Sony decided to port the game over to PC, which was met with some mixed receptions due to bugs and other issues. Since the PS5 was announced, the sequel to Horizon was definitely on most gamers' radars. With the next chapter, we find our hero Aloy accepting a new role as a guardian and protector, one who understands machines and is willing to explore the mystery behind the old world. That old world being our current one, which perishes over 1,000 years before the events of Horizon Zero Dawn. Aloy, curious more than ever, decides to set off on a journey to the Forbidden West, a wild and dangerous area that few venture to. The original game seems to be set place in the southwest portions of the United States, while the Forbidden West looks to be mainly in California, due to the fact that we can see many famous landmarks such as the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. I'm really excited for this game. I played and got the platinum for the original twice. It's such a rich world. The story and mystery behind how humanity got to this point was so fun to discover. I really enjoyed the combat and having to figure out different techniques to take down each machine, knowing which tools to use to maximize my efforts. So give me more of that, and on PS5, yes please. The graphics and animations that they've shown so far look amazing. Even though Forbidden West is cross-gen with the PS4, it's definitely a step up from the original. Games like Ratchet & Clank and Demon's Souls have been some of the most impressive games on PS5 so far, but I think Horizon will take that crown. It was just announced that Horizon Forbidden West will have a file size of 86 gigabytes in PS5, which considering most PS5 games have been half the size of the PS4 counterparts, Forbidden West is set to be a massive game, literally. And that's before the day one patch, which will likely increase that file size. Horizon Forbidden West is set to release on February 18th, 2022 for both PS4 and PS5. I can't wait. I'm literally taking a week off of work to play it. And the reason for that is because a week later, on February 25th, probably one of the most anticipated games of the past few years is coming out. And that game is FromSoft's entry into the next-gen consoles, Elden Ring. I'll be honest. When FromSoft introduced the Soulsborne genre to the world with Demon's Souls, I wasn't a fan. I tried it, and just like many others, I gave up after being killed for the 18th millionth time. But with the spiritual successor in 2009's Dark Souls, I was hooked. I don't know what it was, maybe I just got good, but I was a huge fan, and it was one of my favorite games from the PS3. I went on to play every Souls-like game moving forward. And of course, once FromSoft announced that they were making Elden Ring, I was so hyped. Elden Ring is an evolution to the Souls series. Previously, the Souls games were very linear with looping paths and connecting areas to give the world a semi-open world feel. But with Elden Ring, we are finally getting a true open world. The great thing about this is that during your adventure, anything can happen. In former Souls games, there was pretty much a structured layout for the areas you'd run through. Small gauntlet of enemies, avoid some traps, and you'd end at a fog gate, which would open open up to a boss fight. But since this game is open world, there are many boss fights just roaming the world. One such fight finds a group of cultists worshipping an idol, but as you get closer, a huge elder dragon swoops down and starts to ravage the area. You're suddenly in a boss fight. It's crazy. It just happens, and I'm totally here for it. Part of the problem with Souls games, in my opinion, have been the predictability factor. Once you understood the world, you could easily avoid the enemies and the hazards, but since anything can happen, it'll keep you on your toes more. The one big new addition to this game is the involvement of George R.R. Martin, who of course is the best-selling author of A Song of Fire and Ice and the Game of Thrones fame. He apparently was contracted to work on the lore and characters in Elden Ring. This approach is very interesting. We will get a cool mix of East meets West creativity. So far, the enemies we'll be facing look to be some of the coolest yet, and hopefully with the addition of Martin, the lore will be a lot easier to follow. Because if you're familiar with Souls games, the lore as well, let's be honest, confusing. There are literally YouTube channels dedicated to explaining the lore of FromSoft games. A few months ago, there was a closed network test for the game, which a lucky few people got to play. The common consensus was that it was awesome. A lot of people seem to enjoy the new combat options and the addition of the player mount. This game is definitely a game I'll grind for weeks. I gotta savor. Fourth on my list of my top 5 most anticipated games of 2022 is from Square Enix, and that game is Forspoken, coming exclusively to PlayStation 5 on May 24th. This is a brand new IP from Square from the team that made Final Fantasy 15, Luminous Productions. They are using the Luminous engine which powered Final Fantasy 15 as well. Though it'll naturally have a similar feel to the game, almost looking like some kind of spin-off. Some notable names are on the writing staff, specifically in Amy Hennig of Uncharted fame and Gary Whitta, who you may know as the writer of The Book of Eli and Rogue One, a Star Wars story. So this game has the potential to be an amazing story-wise. Not a whole lot is known about this game other than you play as Freya Holland, a young woman from New York who finds herself transported to this strange new place with a gauntlet attached to her arm that can speak to her and give her special magic abilities. From the outset, it looks like a pretty standard fantasy tale, but I'm hoping given the writing talent, it's deeper than that. The combat is getting me excited about this game. It's an open world full of crazy monsters and areas to explore. The traversal system looks super fun. Freya is shown jumping and gliding over rocks and trees, and if you played Final Fantasy 15, you'll remember that they experimented with some traversal in Noctis' warp ability. So this seems to be a continuation of that movement. You basically play as a mage, with a wide variety of Final Fantasy staple-like magic. We haven't really had a big deep dive into this game yet, so not a whole lot is known, but there's a rumored PlayStation event supposedly to happen in February, and they always seem to focus on the big games coming out, so hopefully we'll get a better idea of what the game is. From all I've seen, you seem to get caught up in the politics of this world, and of course try to figure out why you're there, and how to get back and save the day. The year is stacked with a bunch of amazing games. While there are many more to come, and I'm sure will get announced as the year goes on. Next, my most anticipated game this time is coming from Xbox. Now I'll admit, I'm not a huge Xbox gamer, I prefer PlayStation, but I love gaming, so I'm glad I have a Series X to be able to play this next one. Starfield from Bethesda, coming to Xbox and PC November 11th. While this game started out as a multi-platform title, it eventually got revealed it'll be on Xbox only due to Microsoft purchasing ZeniMax, the parent company of Bethesda, last year. While this is a big get for Xbox, we've actually known about Starfield for quite some time, but even years after the reveal, we still don't know much about it. But what we do know sounds very interesting. Fallout in space? Yes please. The studio who brought us Fallout and Elder Scrolls is making this game. Two franchises I've been a huge fan of for most of my modern gaming era. Although we've seen next to nothing about this game besides some concept art and a teaser trailer, I'm so hyped for this game. And the great thing about it, it's going to be on Game Pass day one. My biggest hope for this game is exploration. Hopefully we get to explore a good section of space, see some unique cool planets, and be able to go and do pretty much anything. Some of my fondest gaming memories are the random things I encounter playing Fallout. Just going off the beaten path to find some random thing. I remember I did a second playthrough in Fallout 3 where I decided to go in a direction I never went before, and I found this house. Nothing special was about it, but it had this lab-like thing underneath it. And they had this whole side quest where you would go in this VR unit, and there's a simulation, and all this crazy stuff would happen. It was crazy, and I never saw it in my first playthrough. I'm hoping for similar fun things to find in Starfield. We still have some time before Starfield comes out. Let's hope we get some actual info on this game around E3. So those are my top 5 anticipated games of 2022, but I did have a couple honorable mentions to shout out really quick. Now these are games that are said to come out in 2022, or at least rumored to, but I just don't believe it's going to happen, though I hope I'm wrong. Those games are God of War Ragnarok and Final Fantasy 16. Out of both of these games, I think God of War has the most potential to come out this year, but I can easily see it slipping into Q1 of 2023. I hope I'm wrong though. God of War 2018 was so good, it would be a nice end cap to the year. Final Fantasy 16 is probably a safer bet for a 2023 release. We haven't seen much from it other than a cool trailer and some lore stuff on Square Enix's website. That's about it. we still don't really know what the game is about. Apparently it's had a lot of issues with production due to COVID, but from what I've read, a lot of the game is already done. So if it doesn't come out this year, it should be 2023, maybe early 2023. Final Fantasy is one of my favorite franchises ever, specifically Final Fantasy VII. It's my favorite game of all time. And the Final Fantasy XIV team is apparently helming this entry, so that should be good. It's the best-selling Final Fantasy game and considered to have some of the best storytelling in the franchise. Well, there you have it. 2022 is going to be a crazy year for gaming. This is just the tip of the iceberg and the ones I'm most excited about. There are tons of others I didn't even mention. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and a subscribe if you're interested. And hey, let me know what your most anticipated games of 2022 are down in the comment section below. I would love to see what everyone is hyped for. I'm really excited to start this YouTube journey and I hope you come along for the ride. My goal is to put out quality content that's visually appealing and interesting, build a community of like-minded gamers, geeks, and enthusiasts, and just have fun. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.